who are on the outside to please join us. And there are many more thousands of people that will be joining us via the media this evening, where we have the discussion on the role of indigenous women into a very important role they have into preserving and how they transmit those information, the knowledge, the skill, Kalinago heritage, not only to the Kalinago population, but for the rest of Dominica, for the rest of the Caribbean that have learned so much from our intellect of the indigenous heritage. We were the first people, we are the first people of the Caribbean, and many of what went on, the language, the culture, the heritage, the tradition, and you name it, was from our first people. So today, it gives me great pleasure to welcome in a special way the Honorable Koza Frederick, who is our parliamentary representative and the Minister of Environment, Rural Modernization, and Kalinago Upliftment. We have also to join us tonight is Mr. Donaldson Frederick, the Project Officer in the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs. And we have our own Salvat Silvani Green in the PS. We have also coming up with, maybe on her way, Miranda Langley. We have Regina Joseph, who will due to be us tonight. We must pay special apology and sympathy to the Cyril family, which are very involved and should be very involved in this discussion tonight, but due to the passing of their father, are unable to join us for this very important discussion. So we want to extend a welcome for everyone that are on the outside in the intention of participating and hearing in the discourse tonight. We want to, of course, take this opportunity to welcome you. The International Day of Indigenous People of the World started way back in 1977 in the US and some of the states, and it came down and it was by resolution decided that the day would be recognized each year on the 9th of August in 1994 and starting celebrating celebration in 1995. From this time, of course, it also coincided with the date of the Popular Forum of Indigenous People at the UN, and many other discussion was held to promote, to highlight, to put in the front burner the issues of indigenous people worldwide. So this morning we miss on the voice, the presence of our minister. So we'd like to give you an opportunity now, Mr. Minister, to say a few words to the public and those of you listening in the radio land. The Honorable Koza Frederick.
Thank you very much, Nico Tubulu, Prosper Paris. I just want to say to all the Kalinago Braves and everyone on the island who I believe have some Kalinago heritage within their essence, within themselves, happy Indigenous Peoples Day. And so we need to remember, like we remember Christmas, 25th of December, we have to remember that the August 9th is Indigenous Peoples Day around the world. And it's important to identify with that. We are a small, well-organized community, but somewhere across the world, there are indigenous people who are suffering a lot. And so that is what that day is about. The people who are still being discriminated against because they are different. And in our case on the island, I could easily say that it's not the same. That Kalinago people, and in that case tonight, Kalinago women have been given a fair opportunity locally and nationally. And so we have seen women get involved in the politics. We saw what happened at the last election. and we had a woman running, and so people are getting interested. Even as we speak, half of the council are women. And so we do have a lot of folks, and we kind of women who have represented us overseas, and these cultural elders like my good sister Miranda here, are those people who have gone out and spoke and affirmed their consciousness as Kainago people. And even today, as we celebrate this wonderful day, within all of the bigger emancipation story, it is important to know that we do have present women who are heroes, in their own rights. And because first they are mothers, and one can argue that that is where education begins. So the first words, the first way of socializing, the first hug, the first kiss, the first meal, all of that made that woman powerful. And across the board in the Kainago space, we have had women who have had many, many good years of being solid parents. So I want to salute those women. Also salute the women who from the beginning of our existence were able to feed the family in terms of having their small gardens and having the crops around the home. And even back in our history, when the Kainago men were out fighting the enemy, the ladies would be home tending the gardens and doing all of that work. And so it is a wonderful story to tell. And tonight is not about our gender for us, so it's about the women. But to say that I firmly believe that among the women in the Kainago space, there are many who can stand out as serious leaders. And so I really want to salute them tonight and to tell them happy Indigenous Peoples Day, and to really call out Mrs. Burton, P.S. Burton, Miranda Langley, Miriam Paris, all of those wonderful women who have led and will continue to lead. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kozia Frederick. Of course, I am, those of you in Radio Land, I'm Prosper Paris. I work as a cultural officer in the Ministry of Department of Kalinagor Affairs. And it is my pleasure to welcome our panelists tonight. I want to first introduce and to take a seat of merit our very own P.S. Sylvania Green Burton. We also have on panel tonight a very iron lady with much experience that has played a part in the cultural arena and in many other places representing Dominica as an ambassador. Please help me to welcome on the panel Ms. Miranda Langley. Mrs. We're discussing the role of women, and that's only the women has not only the one to really highlight the role, but some of us sideline, and we are very passionate about it. And to join us tonight, we have none other than our own project officer in the Ministry of Kalinagor Department, Kalinagor Affairs, Mr. Donaldson Frederick, to join us in the panel here. I must apologize for some of our panelists who have not able to come due to circumstances in their family of sick. I also want to apologize to the general public on behalf of Chief Lorenzo Sanford, who was not able to join us for today's activity due to his compromising with this deadly disease we have around the place. So it met with the Obutu. So it's one thing we have to deal with. Some of us are stronger than the other, but we have to deal with those situations here. So ladies and gentlemen, those of you listening in Radio Land, this year we also continue to observe the decade of indigenous language, which is so very much important to us. It is said that your language is like an oyster. And this morning I make mention of a shallop or sea beef. When you take out that meat and you only leave that shell, there is a void there. Unless you get something to replenish it and you get some other vibes to fill it in, you remain an empty shell. Luckily, we have some people who are adapted, like a buigo, like a soldier crab, that can enter into the shell like a buigo and fill that spot. Sometimes we're in a position, and some of those are helpless, that we have no feeler in those void. But in our language, which many people thought was extinct, We continue to have research, and this morning with a wonderful exposition and presentation on the Kalinago language. We had a huge crowd here this morning, and I hope and I do have the confidence that when home with another mindset that our language is very important to the cultural heritage as a people. Because without language, you tend to lose everything else. It's just like your tree standing and your roots are rotting, and one day every of your branches, your leaves fading away, and you'll suddenly fall. But our Kalinago roots, we have proved to be resilient people. We not only in the books, we have lived history, we have suffered, and we are living testimony that we can correct history and we can bend those dents back, knock them back, and keep on going. People that have never given up. So it's my pleasure now to hand over this microphone to our moderator. We will generate the discussion tonight on a very important role our ladies have had and still continue to have into, preserving and the transmission of Kalinago knowledge. It's my pleasure to hand over to Mrs. Sylvanie Green Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Prosper Paris, the Cultural Officer within the Ministry of Kalinago Upliftment. Let me first of all say a pleasant good evening and recognize the presence of Honorable Kozia Frederick, our Parliamentary Representative and the Minister for Environment, Rural Modernization and Kalinago Upliftment, Mr. Donaldson Frederick, who is the Development Officer within that ministry. I also want to recognize my very good friend, Ms. Natasha Greaves from the IOM, who is here and who's always willing to assist in the development of the Kalinago people. Let me recognize, of course, my sister here, Mrs. Miranda Langley, who is one of our panelists, who is always willing to participate in anything that is being done in the preservation and, of course, the transmission of the Kalinago culture. I also want to say a pleasant good evening to all our Kalinago people, those outside of the resource center, those listening via radio, and of course we have a full house of the media tonight. A pleasant good evening to all. I would first like to take this opportunity to express profound congratulations to all of us Kalinago people on this, the observance of International Day for Indigenous People worldwide. And in particular, let me congratulate our Kalinago women, as this year the theme for today focuses on the significant contributions that Indigenous women have made to the survival of our Indigenous tribes. Most importantly, let me join in welcoming our most esteemed Kalinago women who will be contributing to the discourse this evening under the theme, the role of Indigenous women in the preservation and transmission of traditional knowledge. As part of the introduction to this panel discussion, let me just give some background information on the critical role that Indigenous women play in the very survival of our Indigenous communities worldwide. Indigenous women are the backbone of Indigenous peoples and our communities, and we play a crucial role in the preservation and transmission of traditional ancestral knowledge. We have an integral collective and community role as caretakers for the next generations, preservers of the environment, enablers for the well-being of our society, among others. Across the globe, Indigenous women are taking the lead in the defense of lands and territories and advocating for Indigenous peoples' collective rights. The traditional knowledge of Indigenous people is very significant and widely acknowledged. As noted by the Special Rapporteur on Indigenous Peoples, and I quote, "Long before the development of modern science, which is quite young, Indigenous peoples have developed their ways of knowing how to survive and also of ideas about meanings, purposes, and values." End of quote. It goes on further to tell us that the term scientific knowledge is also used to underscore that traditional knowledge is contemporary and dynamic and of equal value to other kinds of knowledge. However, Despite the critical role that we as Indigenous women play in our communities as breadwinners, caretakers, knowledge keepers, leaders, and human rights defenders, we often suffer from intersecting levels of discrimination on the basis of gender, class, ethnicity, and of course, socioeconomic status. In many instances, our right to self-determination, self-governance, and control of resources and ancestral lands have been violated over centuries. In the case of our Kalinago women, we can say that significant progress has been made in decision-making processes in our communities, and the minister did mention a few of that. More and more, there are emerging women leaders at the local and national levels. We stand at the front lines of defending our lands, our cultures, and our communities. The reality, however, remains that Indigenous women worldwide are widely underrepresented, disproportionately negatively affected by decisions made on their behalf, and are too frequently the victims of multiple expressions of discrimination and violence. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is a preamble to our discussion tonight. This evening, we will share, a number of us will share on the knowledge and experience as Indigenous Kalinago women living in this community and how we and other women in the community have and continue to preserve, revive, and transmit the traditional ancestral knowledge in various fields of communal activities. Okay, so we will now begin with our questions, and I have two panelists on the table with me, and I am sure that they will contribute significantly to the discussion as we proceed. And if anybody in the crowd would like to contribute, they may also raise their hand, and we would be able to allow them to do that. So the first question tonight, with regards to our topic tonight, I would like to ask the panelists, in your opinion, tell us whether you believe that Indigenous women play a role in the preservation and transmission of traditional knowledge. And if you so believe, what do you think is that role? So in your opinion, tell us whether you believe that Indigenous women play a role in the preservation and transmission of traditional knowledge. And if you so believe, what do you think is that rule?
Mabrika. My name is Miranda Langley, leader of the Karina Cultural Group. I am the leader of the Karina Cultural Group, and my name is Ulika Kaba, which means beautiful butterfly. And I would just like to say, welcome, Mr. Minister. Welcome, Mr. Paris. Welcome to media houses, and to all invited guests, those who vying by the media. Mabrika. Before I start my response, I would just like to say, I just have a tribute poem to a deceased Kalinago sister from Sineku, Sita Frederick. And I just wrote it just a while ago. Sita Frederick was from Sineku, and she was a very strong Kalinago woman. So I am going to say a little poem in Creole as for her contribution. Mama Sita, no moins say Sita International. Mama Sita, no moins say Sita International. Moi te ka fait panye mi bi eve bambou pour voyer enfants moi l'école. Moi te ka fait ti remède oisier moi et puis ti ben remède moi. Mama Sita, non moins c'est Sita International. Langage là où te ka parler, où te ka toujours fait anti l'histoire et où te ka fait nous toujours oui. Mama Sita, non moins c'est Sita International. Où te ka fait langue Kalinago, où te ka fait ti langage là où te ka parler, où te ka fait nous oui, où te ka mener l'amour pour nous. Ou quitter nous et puis ou aller. Nous que marcher. Maman Sita, non moins c'est Sita International. Nous que marcher, mais nous que toujours aimer. Merci Maman Sita pour ça vous fait bon nous. Nous que toujours oublier l'amour nous que voyer ba ou. Nous ou c'est Maman Sita International.
Let's put our hands together.
Contribute to Maman Sita. Of course, Maman Sita, affectionately known as Sita Valmont, was a very cultural person. She knows herbs, she would do her traditional craft, and she have contributed and tremendously to the preservation and the promotion of Kalinago culture. And she have gone. May her soul rest in peace. All right. So, I just, the contribution, the role of Kalinago women played in transmitting Kalinago heritage. Storytelling. They would tell stories during the full moon, at home, before bedtime, to the children during festival, and when someone dies in the community. Kalinago songs, or Kalinago women, songs and music, they pass from generation to generation. Like the mothers, the grandmothers, the Sha woman, would sing songs like lamenting songs, when a baby is born, celebrating songs and marriage, all these things that our Kalinago women in the past contributed. Then we had midwifery. Our Kalinago women played a significant role in midwifery. Before the modern day doctors and nurses, the Kalinago women, in the Kalinago culture, we had our traditional midwife, or how you would say, our local Shasfang. So Kalinago women, their role, they could take place of before and after. After babies was born, they would cut their navel, then put it in a calabash and clipboard that the child father would dig a hole near the cabe. He would gather plant, ruku, calabash, fruit trees. The mother would purge with castor oil and have medicine. After 15 days or 40 days, they would take a nice sea and river bath. So our Kalinago people contributed throughout the centuries. In spite of colonization, in spite of all the atrocities that was done to us, our people continue. Even during colonization, when, especially the Christian, the Catholic, the priests, or, the British colonies and the French colonies, when they told us that we cannot, preach, practice our culture, our people, our women continue doing it secretly. Secretly. That is what they did not know. Because they said that we were shy, they said we were all kind of things. But what they did not know, we keep on continuing our tradition secretly. And today, we are proud. Among all our Kalinago women, I am proud that we survive and our traditional continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda, for that contribution. And if I may just mention, I know for sure the Shasfam was one of the very strong points of Kalinago women. And we had no nurses. The nurses were out of our community. And our elders, they really were able to deliver all the babies. And everybody was healthy. We didn't have nurses. We didn't have the contemporary health centers and so on. But they came to the homes. They knew what it was to what medicines they would make to ensure that they rubbed the stomach before the baby was born and to know what to do after the baby was born. So this was one of the very strong points that Miranda just mentioned, that the Kalinago women really were in touch with. It was part of nature, I would think, but they really worked well when it came to delivering our babies without having professional health care, if you want to say that. We had no deaths. Nowadays, you hear of children stillborn or children being born dead at birth. But during that time, our Shasfam, they did it an extremely very good job. So, Mr. Frederick, Mr. Donaldson, I don't know if you want to contribute to this question. You want me to repeat it? Okay, in your opinion, tell us whether you believe that Indigenous women play a role in the preservation and transmission of traditional knowledge. And if you so believe, what do you think is that rule?
Okay, thank you very much, PS. And I want to say good evening to our listening public. Special good evening to our honorable parliamentary representative and the Minister for Environment, Rural Modernization and Kalinago Upliftment, our cultural officer, or my panelists right there. I am happy to be here this evening to have this discussion as it relates again to our women. As a man, I feel proud to be here with you having this discussion. And Indigenous women, of course, play a vital role in the preservation and transmission of traditional knowledge. And this is a very factual statement. I believe that women play a critical role in the preservation of our culture and our heritage. One of the things that I want to touch on is the structure of our family. Normally, our parents, they're women at home, and the structure of the family that they knew and they learned from their ancestors. You know, you have the father, mother, children, and there were certain things that was expected of the children. Especially in growing up, in becoming a family. We had that strong bond of unity, strong family bond, and we had extended families, grandparents, uncles, and we were all living in this one room, this one house, a cabe, for example. And we would have a lot of fun, a lot of games, a lot of storytelling, and so on. So the structure of the family, I think, is something that has been taught a long time and continues in today's society. Also, the herbal teas. Herbal teas started a very long time ago. Our ancestors used that as a means of caring for our injuries. They normally tell you in the morning when you wake up, the first thing to do is to chauffer your chair. Chauffer your chair meaning to warm your stomach. You know, you get a nice simekotwa tea or a basilic tea, and you drink that starts your day. And my father in those days, he say, once he drink that cup of tea for the morning, and your good friend, Mrs. P.S. Burton, he said that will keep him until 12 o'clock, you know, before he eats something else. You know, and this was these were the traditions, and we're looking at now, in those times, COVID, and we have to start thinking a lot more as to how we appreciate using our ginger, our simekotwa, our turmeric to assist us in the fight against COVID. And I think these are some of the traditions that our ancestors started, and they have kept it, and we have it today. So in terms of the preservation, definitely, I want to give them 100% on that.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. And of course, I recall that my great-grand-aunt, she would ensure that she drink the coffee in the morning. And sometimes we hear people say coffee is not good. But I know that our ancestors drank the coffee. My grand-aunt, she would drink her coffee in the morning and tell you she doesn't feel hungry until midday, and she never suffered from any gas. And when she woke up in the morning and there was no coffee, she would find the coffee tree and she would go through the process of processing it until it was ready for her to drink before she had anything for her day. And she lived a ripe old age, you know. And so I must say that the early morning warming of your stomach, they say, Unipu chauffe pomcheu. You have to warm the end of your heart, or if you want to call it that way, to ensure that you start off the day on a very good foot. So yes, so in the experience of the application of traditional knowledge, I want you to again share with us some of the examples that you're aware that women used in the Kalinago community to solve some of the communal issues that we have. In any sector, be it in agriculture, be it in the environment, be it in employment, or be it in any other social issues. So if you want to give us some more examples, we would be happy to have that.
All right. Let me just give my views on the environment. Of course, long before modernization and all those chemicals we are using right now to treat our crops, and our agricultural crops, our ancestors knew how to treat their agriculture, the cassava, all their toloma and whatever. They would know how to treat it. How they would treat it? They would use natural herbs, natural things that is around the environment. Another thing they would use to treat their crops, especially bugs and, locusts and all those things was, our urine. Our urine. Some people say it's unhealthy. Some people say it's voodoo. But that was our tradition. Yes. And even my grandmother, great-grandmother, even when they had the cold, they would use their urine, to treat themselves. So our Kanago people had great science. I mean, they know what to do. And whenever they would use all those natural, chemicals, those natural way of treating, the environment, to take away all the bugs and whatever, then, it would, and it was natural. It is a natural, treating, or to get away from disease and plagues and whatever. So they were great science. They were great caretakers of the environment. Thank you.
I also want to add to that, one of the examples is in agriculture. And one of the practices that we did was what we call soil stabilization, and utilizing trees and different crops that will basically keep the soil from eroding. Nowadays, we see people putting up big blocks. But before, we used to use vetiver. Vetiver is one of the most common grass that we would use to prevent soil degradation. Another practice we had was what we call fallowing. Fallowing is a process by which we would farm an area, cultivate, and then we will leave it and go to another area and cultivate. So we will give the soil now enough chance to build back its strength, or to build back its richness, This was one of the practices that we have, and in today's society where we have the number of chemicals, my sister spoke about it, has become a problem. It has become an environmental problem. It has affected our aquaculture in the rivers. It has affected our rivers, our seas, because those chemicals have been washed from the mountain into the water streams. And now, how many lush you can see in a river? How many kakado? You know, and these are some of the livelihood that, I mean, we run down in the river and throw some, how you call that, nivwe in the river, nivouage, and you get one to lush, and you go and you make a food, you get one to VO. But all these things have affected, and it has affected our livelihood. And so fallowing was a natural way that we use to enrich the soil without using any chemicals. Organic fertilizer, another big problem that we have. Chemicals. When we use to solve those problems, organic manure. So when we peel our little fig and our dashing, we'll use that. And there's a special way they're making it. Put that in a bucket, leave that there, cover that, turn that. And when it's, or in a hole, for example, we used to dig a big hole and throw all our food peeling in there, biodegradable stuff, grass and all. And then when it comes soft and ready, we use that to ensure that our plants and so on are well nourished, instead of using fertilizer, you know. So these were some of the things that we used to do traditionally. And again, if we continue to use them, they would definitely solve some of the problems that we have today.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. And it brings me to the next question that I had in terms of how is it that we can utilize traditional knowledge to combat climate change? We see more and more the effects of climate change. We have the experience of Hurricane Maria. I mean, Tropical Storm Erica dealt other communities in Dominica quite a big blow. We were kind of spared. But when it came to Hurricane Maria, we got our fair beating here in the Kalinago territory. And so I know that before we were spared, if you want to say that. We had Hurricane David, I recall. I was a small child, but I knew that not many houses were destroyed like when Hurricane Maria passed. And so I want to ask you the question, how do you think we can utilize traditional knowledge to combat some of the effects of climate change here in the Kalinago territory, and if you want to expand to other indigenous communities across the globe? I don't know who wants to go first this time.
Climate change, a very good question. Climate change is a global challenge, is a global problem affecting the entire world. And of course, as indigenous people, we definitely will be or have been affected by it. Traditional knowledge in terms of how do we reduce, one of the things I think that is very critical is the mindset of our people. I think education as to how do we manage our waste, for example. How do we manage cultivation? These are some of the key questions that we need to ask ourselves. Because gone are the days when there was a lot of burning, for example, buka. And this is human action that will affect the ozone layer. As a result of that, we have intensity in storms that will affect us. And based on the intensity and the severity of those storms, 90 to 100% of our homes are being affected. And so the action that we need to take has to be an individual person action, people's action, people-driven action. We need to reduce on our garbage waste. How do we manage our garbage? We do not separate waste. We do not do that. We just go down to town, we buy our KFC, and we come, we're on a bus, and we just fling that. Fling the KFC, fling the bottles. No, we need to be educated. We need to ensure that there's a mental change in our minds to facilitate that process, because climate change is not happening tomorrow, it's happening now. It's affecting us now. And so the action that we take, we need to go back again to our traditional knowledge. When we clean, let us allow the bush and so on to how do you call that? Allow it to dry by its own self without burning. When we dispose of our garbage, let us separate our waste Let us not just throw the stove and the so on down the river. Because these are some of the actions that will definitely impact us and allow climate change to affect us. I do not know if you have any other to add to that, Miranda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Frederick. I think also nowadays we hear a lot of our young people are dying. People die suddenly more than before. Maybe there used to be sudden deaths before, but I don't recall in my community really people dying suddenly. Now we have the menace, I call it a menace, the cancer menace that has taken root and is taking toll on our community. And we've also been exposed to the CNCDs. Prior to a couple of years, maybe 10, 15 years ago, the number of persons who suffered from CNCDs was quite reduced. Now we see so many of our young people suffering from hypertension, diabetes, cancer, and the other health issues that we in the Kalinago territory were not exposed to for a very long time, and we felt that maybe we were resilient to it, but it has taken a toll on us. What do you think we should do as a people to reduce, combat some of those health issues that we are seeing popping out into our community and taking the lives of our young people? I want to ask you that question.
It is so true, Mrs. Moderator. In our past traditional, ancient traditional ways, our people would take good care of themselves. You have our women during their period, they would stay home. They wouldn't touch plants, flowers, peppers. They would have nothing to do with nature. Because during that time, they would go through a purification time. Our women. They would be put in a cabin and let the elders take care of them. I wish it was like before. I would be on a holiday. But I'm gone, long gone already. I am out of that. So, and they would be treated with herbs. Our elderlies would treat them with herbal medicines. They would give them their nice ginger tea and their basilic and whatever. And they wouldn't have to go out. And even the elders would rub them because they believe that it would have evil spirits, and the evil spirits are very attracted to blood. So they would rub them with special oils to protect them. And then they would stay on a holiday in their cabin and treated like queens. And then after, they would go out and do their work again. So that was health and wellness. Health and wellness. And even also, when the women had their period, they wouldn't sleep with their husband, neither with their boyfriend, because they believe that it would affect, you give them waist pain. And it is true. So, all those traditional practices, we have moved away from those traditional practices there. And even when a baby is born, a woman had to stay 40 days purged by, castor oil and take herbal medicine. And after 40 days, you go to the sea and you take a nice river bath and a sea bath. So that was, our ancestors had those, that practices. So that is why they used to live long. The natural food. There was no chemical. Everything was natural. They eat a lot of natural food, vio, shallop, all those nice seafood, and cassava and toloma. So that is wise. But today, it is a problem. We have moved away from the traditional knowledge and the traditional way we treat ourselves. That is why our body has become imbalanced. Imbalance. Because we are not treating our bodies good. Exercise. Our people used to walk a lot. Our Kalinago women used to take their basket or their jola, their cotton. They would go to the gardener. They would go to Pesitan, right, Margini Ridge, even all the way, to get food. So they would exercise. Today, our women not exercising. There's not enough exercise. We're not walking. That is why our health, is deteriorating. Cancer, as Mrs. Moderator, Mrs. Green said, cancer is a serious problem in the territory. We are taking too much chemical in our bodies. We are taking too much the tablets, the oils, all these things, that is not good for our system. It is affecting our immune system. It is affecting our womb. We have gone imbalanced. Before, our people would live 100 and plus years. We just recently, during the COVID, we had only 2 Kalinago women died. They were the 2 of the eldest in our territory, which live 108 and 100 and whatever. They took care of themselves. They ate natural food, natural water, they breathed fresh air, and they exercised. And they were strong mentally, physically. So right now, that is why we need to go back to our traditional food. We need to go back to our natural, traditional ways so that we can live long like our ancestors. Thank you.
Yes. I think the concept of cancer is a serious concern, and not only in the Kalinago territory, but in Dominica by extension. And I think health and wellness is something that we need to take seriously. A healthy community is definitely a strong community. We will have persons who will live longer, people who will be able to lead and to carry on with what our forefathers has taught us. And so our food and food preparation is something that I think we need to pay a lot of attention to. Food preparation is key. Nowadays is a KFC young people want to eat. Fast food. I have no problems with that, but at the same time, we have to have that level of consciousness. We do not have it. So I think the level of consciousness as it relates to food and food preparation is something that is critical. What we had before was subsistence farming. How many young children you see today planting at the back of their parents' home? Some vegetables, lettuce, carrots, things that can grow for legumes purposes. Not many. You walk around homes today and you hardly see a bed of cabbage. Gone are the days when people used to plant lettuce and young children go in and sell so that they can buy some snack at the schools. No longer do we do that. And guanpe. All these things are things that we had as food. Sports was a big thing. How many of us now involved in sports? And my good colleague spoke about exercising. Sports was a method, a way used to exercise, so we keep our body balance in shape. But no longer we want to exercise. We want the fast food and no exercising. We're now into tablets and cell phone and Facebook and WhatsApp. We will sit for almost 24 hours in WhatsApp, and Facebook, and not go and catch the water in the river because we have pipe-borne water now. But before, in those days, we had to run down to the river, get the water, bathe, come back up, change the goat, and then go to school. So you had all that physical activity going on, Right now, that concept has changed. And I think we need to bring back that level of consciousness. Our traditional dance. You ever see Miranda dance? Let me tell you, it's from left to right, and she has that fitness because she keeps moving around and so on. So So we need to encourage our young people to take part in more of those things. Our food, our sports, our traditional dance, to ensure that we maintain a balance.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick, and I do agree with you. I think that we've moved away from the traditional way of cooking and eating, and so we've now put ourselves in trouble, so to speak. We love the fast foods. Before, I know that when January took, February, March, every family would be making a garden. Yes, they would be making a buka, which was not right for the environment, but every family would be making a garden. So you ate the natural food, and there was very little fertilizer, if any. And then you had, although we live on the Atlantic coast, there were many boats at the bay. So in Iwasi, I say to people, Iwasi used to have about 18 boats at one time. And you had fishermen's feast, and every afternoon you would see the little boys running down to the sea to pull the boats, and you would get a lohale. You would get 1 or 2 flying fish or tush, and that is what you would cook at home. It was not chicken that was in the freezer for many, many years. Down at Salibia, I'm sure Minister Frederick will remember that there were maybe 20-something boats. And every family had a fisherman, and you always had fresh fish, or you had poisson boucané for the breakfast next morning, and we ate healthy. But nowadays, that is out of the door. People eat macaroni and cheese, people eat white rice, and all of the imported foods, adding to our food import bill, and also to the destruction of our bodies. So, in fact, yes, Mr. Frederick, I do agree with you and Mrs. Langley. However, I think that we still have a lot to contribute as it pertains to our traditional knowledge. And so I want to ask our panelists tonight, how do you think we can utilize our traditional knowledge to improve our socio-economic status? In the Kalinago territory, some people always like to look at us and say, oh, that part of of Dominica is poor. But I say poor in whose side? Poor for whom? We are very rich people. We are very rich. And so I want to have some discussions tonight on how do you think we can utilize our traditional knowledge, our heritage, to improve our socioeconomic status and the future development of the Kalinago space.
All right. I see our Kalinago craft is a very vital, I see our Kalinago craft as bringing economic, sustainable, bringing economic value to our economy in the territory. Our craft is very unique. In fact, our craft has become #1 all around. Even when we go on craft exhibition, most of us have went to craft exhibition, and the Kalinago craft it has always outstanding. It has always come out first. So I think the craft we need to encourage our craft vendors. We need to encourage our young people. We need to do workshops. We need to do programs to educate and to pass on the knowledge of the craft so that our young people will be able to do the craft and to bring economic value, economic development to our territory. Thank you.
I want to touch a little bit on something that we did in the past. I think that can become a viable business venture, and that is composting. In today's society, we have taken a trend where everybody wants to be organic. And we from a very long time, we've always been involved in composting. And so I think composting can be a very viable business in the Kalinago territory. Once it is branded properly, it is packaged properly, I think there's room for export. Under the World Bank program that we have in Ministry of Agriculture, most of the importation of fertilizer is organic fertilizers. Why can't we, in the Kalinago territory, have our facility, our composting facility, up and running, and be producing farmers in the Kalinago territory, in Cassava and Marigot, with organic fertilizers? I mean, we can sell it and make some money out of it. You know, that is one of the economic activities that can be gained from our traditional method of fertilizer. The second thing is traditional dance. We need to empower more of our young people to learn the dance. Why not a group in Sineku, in Golet River, in Maho River? Why can't we get a group up there as well? You know, to ensure that the culture remains. And I say that because we're a strong tourism society, strong tourism-based community. Community tourism is a big thing in the Kalinago territory. And if more of our young people are engaged in the dances, you know, singing the songs, when somebody comes there, hey, we need to charge you for the performance, you know. We're not going to tell you it's $2 for it. No, you have to pay for the traditional dance, you know. And we always have visitors coming in. They always come in to see, to visit. So it's important that we have the continuation of our dances. Because, like I said, we have a strong tourism base. Another thing that also we did was to have our language. Our language is critical, you know. I mean, if somebody come there, look, they come and listen to us and to hear how we speak, there should be a price to that. Should be a fee. You can't come and tell me speak Kalinago for you and not be able to pay me. Voodoo. I always wanted to be a voodoo, you know. Do some sorcery, you know. Sorcery was a big thing. My parents never teach me how to do it. But the amount of people, Mrs. B, sorry, PS, that will come and say, boy, things not working for me. Something must be wrong. Let me tell you something. People make a lot of money out of that, you know. They go, they do a bath, they say a prayer, and you'll be surprised all the demons and all the thing that holding you down will be gone. You broke, you poor, Irvins, we can make you rich. I don't know why my parents never teach me how to do voodoo, but also I would be a millionaire. Thank you, Mrs. B.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. I didn't know you were interested in this. But you raised some very salient points, Mr. Frederick. The whole question of Timanyo. I mean, Reggie is not with us tonight. Regina Joseph Lestrade was supposed to be for us. But Reggie is a master when it comes to the production of Timanyo. Instead of using the commercial fertilizer that we use, that is destroying some of our soils and even our rivers and the fishes in our rivers and the sea. The tea manure is something that can be used as fertilizer for any crop in Dominica if we really want to go into organic production of agricultural products. And the tea manure is all natural. We grow the trees, the glory cedar and the other things, we grow them right here in the territory. And this is a socio-economic activity that we can get involved in that can create employment for our young people and for those involved in it, as well as ensuring that our soils remain intact. So the tea manure is something I think that really should be explored in the Kalinago territory as a socio-economic activity to bring income create employment, and also to preserve our environment. I also think that the packaging of our herbs, when you hear it is indigenous herbs, people will always go for it. But we go to town and we buy the little bag of sugar with a little taste of ginger and we say we're making a ginger tea. But we here in the Kalinago territory, we have herbs. I recall when I was clerk of the council and even as community development assistant for the Kalinago territory, we had hundreds of people from universities coming to the territory to cut our bush, to take it to the states to test. I'm sure that my friend Prosper remembers that because he was one of the lead people with those persons. And they came to get those herbs so that they could test and find whatever it is that was in there to cure other things. And maybe, who knows, they may have made millions of dollars on us, you know. Because we never know what happened to the test that was done, whether it was good, whether it was not good, whether it was bad, and so on. So herbs is something that we can absolutely grow in the territory. And there is nothing, everything is on internet now. We know how to package it, how to dry it, how to market it, and so on. We also can do rubs, indigenous rubs. I go for a rub and I pay anywhere between 100 and 150 in Roseau for a rub that wouldn't last more than 3/4 of an hour. Right here in the territory, the same herbs, we can use them to make the teas, as well as to make the oils, and as well as to make the rubs. So one of the things that I am interested in doing is to make the marijuana oil. I'm very interested in it. Minister Frederick, I'm interested in making the marijuana oil, and I know how to do it, you know, because you know how to do it, Mr. Frederick. Really, I am interested in doing that because I know government is going to sooner or later say, yes, you can do it, and so on. So I'm interested in doing that. So the rubs is something that we in the Kalinago territory can look at as a socioeconomic activity that can create employment for our young persons. People come to the Kalinago Barona Ote, there can be a small hut somewhere with 2 young ladies, a young man, and they do your rubs for you right away, and you are able to jump on the bus, the tourist bus, and return to your destination. But your money remains here, and it creates employment for 1 or 2 persons, and it helps in the development of the Kalinago territory. Another thing I think that we are letting loose is the whole question of the cassava. Taking the cassava to the next level. I'm very passionate about that. When I talk about it, I sometimes get off, because I believe that cassava can be the green gold of the Kalinago space. We always had bananas. That was something foreign to our land, and it destroyed a lot of our lands because of the chemicals that was used in our soil. But I know that we can grow cassava. You plant a piece of cassava, you leave it, you turn your back, you come back, you weed it, and when it's ready, you harvest. I think that we can add value to our cassava. We can start looking at how do we package it so that it can have shelf life. And we know that the French people are very intimate with us when it comes to cassava products. They are right, the French is right on our doorsteps. We can take a boat in an hour, we are in the French countries. And so I think there are many avenues that we can look at utilizing our traditional knowledge and heritage to create employment and develop our socioeconomic status, and also to improve the future of our community. Okay, so we move on. We were talking about the language earlier today. We spoke quite a bit about the language this morning, and I went and I wasn't present this morning because I was at work, but I took all the photos that I could take, Pros. So I'm developing my own dictionary. And I saw that you have my name right there, because my name means blessed, and you have it right there. That's my Kalinago name. And so I want to ask our panelists tonight, how important or critical do you think that the indigenous language is to the development, preservation, and transmission of our traditional knowledge? I know that we have lost quite a bit. We have the dictionary, and one of the projects that I want to do, and I want Pros to help me to do it, I've not had discussions with him, but is to make a pocket dictionary. You have this big dictionary, but if I have a pocket dictionary and it has 50 words in it, I might be more interested, or a child might be more interested in learning 50 words than looking at this big dictionary. And we can maybe look at words that are important or catchy or used daily and so on to make a pocket dictionary. So I want to ask our panelists tonight, how important or critical do you think that the indigenous language is to the development, preservation, and transmission of our traditional knowledge?
All right. Our Kalinago language is such important. I am so happy right now that Mr. Paris and Mabrika, my husband, have taken the role in saying a one word for the day, Kalinago word. And I would like to compliment them for doing that, because we have struggled. Pros and Mano and myself, the Carifuna Culture and Karina, we have tried the past to tell people the language is important, and it is time that we speak the language, because the language is there. But people wasn't really interesting. They didn't see the importance, but it is important. So I would like to compliment Mabrika, my husband, and Mr. Paris, and DBS Radio for coming on board to teaching the Kalinago language, one word for the day, which is so important. I think it is gaining momentum. The Dominican Society, most of them are excited. And they call us and they tell us, I have my book, and every morning I can't wait to write my Kalinago language. And some of them are calling, they want their Kalinago name. They want to have their renaming of their Kalinago name. So that is making growth. I think Ministry of Education, this is very important. I would like to encourage, and I would like to see that the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs, we have the Kalinago students that just graduated from high school. I know some of them will take different careers, different paths, but we need to encourage them, encourage our young Kalinago college students, universities, to learn the language. And from an education, you can go to the schools, you can teach it in colleges, you can teach it at the university, you can teach it with the kindergarten children, and teach our young Kalinago youth, college students, university, to teach the language. Because our language is so important. There are the others, indigenous people who are starting in Canada, in Australia, they have started their Kalinago, their indigenous school, their language. So it is important. Our songs, we have to learn our songs. And we have, and as my brother was saying, we need more cultural groups. And not only cultural groups, we need people to learn the songs. I have been trying my best, and Mr. Paris have tried his best to sing those Kalinago songs. But it is not enough. We need more people to come on board. We even need to organize a choral, a Kalinago choral choir group to sing Kalinago language, Kalinago songs, the Kalinago words. So that is what I would like to see, and I would like to encourage people. And that is how we will preserve and, our language. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, I think a lot more needs to be done with our language. A lot has been done, but it's been a challenge, has been rocky. It's been very difficult for our cultural officer in terms of putting the words together, putting it into sentences and so on. I mean, I am even unable to say a sentence in Kalinago language, but I know Alakwabutu, is one that I know, and I know Sopi. So at least I know the words, but we need to put them now into a sentence, So it's coming on slowly, and I think we need to do more. One of the things I think we need to do is to go into the schools. My sister did mention having the young people involved and to get them accustomed with speaking the language, and I think that is one of the routes that we should go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick and Mrs. Langley. I also think that our young people are technologically driven. And you have to make things interesting to capture their attention. And so I think we need to be very innovative in our discussion on how it is that we can encourage our young people to learn the Kalinago language. So for example, we have Kalinago Week during September. We have a number of activities. But when it comes to the language, the only people doing the language or singing the language, or doing the dances, it is the cultural groups. But there are prizes to be won. So we should maybe have a competition. Maybe a singing competition. Have some sentences, maybe 5, 6 sentences. You start small and then you can grow. And every year you have various competitions in Kalinago language. I also think that I love sports. So if we can utilize sporting activities, indigenous sporting activities, and I'm sure the minister here will be able to teach some because I know he's been to a competition once or twice, and we're able to have those competitions, but also incorporate the language into that. We have to start being innovative because we know that our young people are not into this just coming to listen to you sing or dance. So we have to be able to make it be innovative, to allow them to come and participate in the language and the other traditional dances and activities that we have. Okay, so let's move on. And I want to ask you, our panelists, to give us some of your thoughts on how you think that the traditional knowledge can influence modern science and technology. We know, as I mentioned earlier, that our young people, you see everybody on their phone. Tonight then I look at I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the crowd here. People are on their phones. How can we utilize our traditional knowledge to influence modern science and technology to be used for the development of our communities? I want to give you a few minutes to just think of it, and if you can give us some answers, what you think, what is it? What are your thoughts on that?
I think in today's world, we have the technology, we have our cell phone, we have, Facebook, we have, all the modern technology now. And I think we can, run programs, we can educate, we can do cultural programs, we can do a lot of things with technology because our young people now, you know, they know the technology now and they know what to do, whatever. So I think the technology right now, we have to use it for our young people so that we can, you know, preserve our culture. Thank you.
I think that's a very interesting question. One of the first things that popped up to my mind was developing some apps. A lot of young people now into apps. One of the apps I'm thinking of is how do we incorporate the Kalinago language, for example, into an app. So you have word puzzle app, Kalinago language, maybe. You could have some games, maybe, in Kalinago language. Reading in the app. So this is one of the things that pop up to my mind. The second thing that popped up was the weather cycle. We normally look at the birds, for example. When the weather is bad, we see blackbirds flying across or ants moving in a particular direction. And we would use those to determine whether or not something bad was going to happen. Right now you have rain gauges. We have rain gauges up there. But how accurate is the rain gauge? When we stay and we look at the mountain up there and we say, tala mauvais ou savent. What do you say?
Tala changé.
Tala changé. And you look up and you see that whole black cloud there. We know you'd have something coming. Those days you have computerized thing that will tell you how much inches of rain that will fall and so on. But our forefathers could look at the mountains and say rain will fall at a particular time and for how long, you know. So these are some of the things I think that can be incorporated into modern technology to ensure that we are informed. We get the message as indigenous people and we're able to respond, let's say, if there were to be a hazard that would impact us.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. I also think that we can utilize the modern technology to bring our young people together. Our young people love to look at movies, so if you have a movie night and you utilize that to bring across some of the traditional knowledge, you put a little piece in everything that you do and you're able to do it. I also think that the cell phone is something that can be used. You can have blasts of Kalinago words and activities, just as we do when you have an activity, you send it out and people send it to one another. We could have people doing that within different communities. We could have competitions because we have 10 hamlets in the territory. So we could have competitions among the hamlets to see how we can best utilize modern technology. Let somebody from Sensi create an app and we match it against somebody from Concord Zone and see how we can give them a prize, but at the same time we're spreading the information, we're building awareness as it pertains to our cultural heritage. And the whole question of the weather, I mean, only yesterday I was complaining and this morning I was complaining because I listened to the weather report and the weather report said that yesterday afternoon the weather would have cleared. We would have had bright weather. And today we would have had scattered showers, but we had rain for the whole of yesterday, and we had rain for the whole of today. So I know that when I wake up in the morning, I'll ask my husband, what the weather saying now? He'll look at the clouds, how the clouds are moving. If the clouds are moving from the north, he will say, a bad weather is coming, we'll have some rain. So traditional knowledge is very important. I think too, one of the things that we didn't touch on tonight is the whole question of construction. I recall when Hurricane David, our parents and our foreparents used to construct their homes and put the wood, the posts in the soil, and the pillars in the soil. And they would also be using, they would not be using the nails, the silver nails that we have, what you call them. They would be using wooden nails, and the wooden nails would go from one beam to the next. And trust me, no hurricane could throw that down. You know, and those with the pillars in the soil, the hurricane would rock it, but it would come back and stand up and it would not fall. So these are some of the knowledge, traditional knowledge that we can incorporate into modern life now and see. For example, people are all now building hip roof. But our roofs in the Kalinago territory are always hip. Well, on two sides, and no hurricane would remove our roofs, you know, and we continue to say this is the way to build, and now we see that more and more traditional knowledge is coming together with modern technology and building more resilience in our communities. So I want to ask you this last question, and I don't know if anybody in the crowd has a question to ask us, but I want to ask you this last question, and I hope you can give us some information on that. What do you think was the effect of applying indigenous knowledge and medicine in alleviating the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic? We had the COVID-19 pandemic. We had, unfortunately, we still have the COVID-19 pandemic. But in our community, we saw 2 of our elders who went, and they were women. One was 108 years, another was 103. They went because of COVID. But they had survived, you know, utilizing traditional knowledge. And I do not know how much of the knowledge was imparted to us before they left. But I want to ask you tonight, what do you think was the effect of applying indigenous knowledge and medicine in alleviating some of the consequences that we suffered from COVID-19 pandemic?
As I say, our Kalinago people, they knew their herbs. They were always doing their herbs. They were always planting their herbs. They were always drinking their herbs and using their herbs in the best possible way. I think the COVID-19 was a lesson to be learned because our people and a lot of people, Dominican over there, they was going out of balance. COVID-19 teach us a lesson to go back to our traditional ways. And if it doesn't, and because of our herbal medicine, we was able to take during the COVID, probably a lot of us would have died. But you see, I always say that our Kalinago people are very strong. We are very resilient. It's because of our natural, you know, the things we eat, the food, the herbal medicines, the fish water, you know, that kept us very strong. So that's why the COVID did not hit us that hard. Our elderly, I really felt sorry because they were very strong. But when they got COVID, they couldn't. They just couldn't. The body was already weak. But thanks God, we survived. And through our herbal medicines. Thank you.
I think COVID had limited impact on the indigenous population. One of the reasons I think that is because of our traditional medicine. And my sister there spoke about our resilience, and that is so true because over hundreds of years, we have survived a number of those challenges, diseases, when the Europeans came, genocide. And we survived all of these hard times. And more hard times come. Hurricane Maria, now COVID. And we're still there fighting. And we have survived it only because of our herbal medicines. I think for some people, soppy is something that works as well. A little bit of soppy now and then to clear the throat and sanitize the throat, you know. If you don't do that, then you're in trouble. And there's also the traditional herbs that we use. the one that make you sweat, so you go, you make a little tea and so on, and that make you sweat. If you get COVID, next day you're good. I mean, I see my pal rep get a flu the other day, tell me, boy, you know, I suspect I may have the flu, you know. Next day, the man was up on his foot. The man tell me he did a tea, and he sweat that out, man. The whole night, the man sweating, wet how much clothes. Next day, the man good. So this is the kind of things that we practice, and I think a number of our elderly folks and the young people have been practicing traditional medicine, and it has worked well. A little bit of lime and honey boosts the immune system, you know. So it doesn't really take much. It's a matter of the vitamin C. Mix that up with and make a good honey base, and boom, you boost up your immune system. It doesn't take much. A little ginger, honey, and lime, and you're good to go. So these are some of the traditions, and we have them right in our backyard. We don't have to go to Roseau and buy it. We have a tree right behind there. We go, we pick that. Our honey, we have people making honey out of a number of bees now. We even have trading going on. So we have all the resources around us that we can use to help us to recuperate from the virus. Thank you very much.
Indeed, Mr. Frederick, because I recall when I got infected with COVID, my sister Reggie, she called me and she said, just get some lime and use the lime. Other people were using other things to do, to inhale. And she was saying to me, just get the lime leaf, you know, the very leaf of the lime and the lime itself. And that will clear your throat in a while, because she said to me, COVID doesn't like alkaline surfaces. So if your internal part is alkaline, you will get it out of your system very quickly. But yes, you steam. So in fact, we have quite a bit of traditional medicines in the Kalinago territory. If your stomach hurts you, you know you have to get some japana and that kind of thing to help your stomach. You know, if you have COVID, you get your ginger, your chuk and so on, and turmeric, and you're able to combat those illnesses. So tonight we had if we really want to do it, utilizing our traditional knowledge. I also think that our rivers, we didn't speak much about our rivers and the use of the sea by our elders to ensure that when we are sick, we go to the sea, we take a bath and we feel better. And the whole question that Mr. Frederick spoke about, his parents not teaching him to do certain things. I think people would say you go to the river mouth, you take a bath, you feel better, you know, that kind of thing. And the use of all the herbs and all of that can assist us when we are sick, make us fear, but also being able to be used, if we use it in the right way, to make some money, to create employment, to better the future of the Kalinago people. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank our panelist, Mrs. Langley. I want us to put our hands together for her. I think she imparted some very important knowledge to us, and we know that Miranda is a stalwart. She continues to assist in ensuring the preservation of our cultural heritage here in the Kalinago territory. Mr. Frederick Donaldson, he did a wonderful job tonight too. I want us to put our hands together for him too. And I want to applaud the work that he has been doing with Minister Frederick at the ministry and the other staff, of course, of the ministry. Mr. Paris, who is a stalwart, who continues to work, and Pross will tell you he don't care if he's here alone. He's going at it. And I think we need to give support, and we need to ensure that the work that he has started, and the work that the cultural groups have started, and the work that the ministry is doing, it will not go unnoticed, one, but will ensure the preservation of the cultural heritage of the Kalinago people. I think we need more young people to come on board, but it takes a little effort to get them to come, but I think we need to just put the effort together and do more innovative work with our young people. Sometimes we say they're not interested, but they have ways and means that they want us to do certain things on their behalf. And so we need to look at them, have discussions with them, and see how we can encourage them to come on board so that we can ensure the preservation of our traditional knowledge, our heritage, and our community. So, ladies and gentlemen, with these few words, I want to thank you, and I want to thank our listeners. I want to thank the media. They're here with us from all the way Tong. They have to go back to Tong. And so we want to thank them very much for their presence here tonight. I will now hand over to Mr. Paris for the closing.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sylvanie Green-Burton. I just want to say, to join with me into thanking Mr. Frederick. I see you're not a lady. I say tonight you're going to be transgender, so you maybe have to speak on both sides, which you did a very good job. So let's give Mr. Frederick a big hand and a round of applause. Miranda, as we said, do so wonderful job, and she would have back up. We'll have two other ladies there to back him up. Miranda wholly fought fairly well. Miranda, thank you very much for your time and for inspiration. Very proud of you. And Sylvanie Green-Burton, I work in Sylvanie since Sylvanie was a teenager as clerk of council. So she know my work, I know her work, and I'll encourage her. Very proud of you, Sylvanie, always. We want to thank you very much for coming on board. We want to wish all the ladies of the island, the only Kalinago ladies, a very good Indigenous, not only Indigenous, but this strength, what they call Kalinago Woman Strong, but also can extend it to Dominica Woman Strong, White Kubulian Woman Strong. And you don't know about it, but if you know, this year I just wrote a song. If the trees could find their voices and sing from the top of the hills, I would hear them say, Kalinago Woman Strong. And if all the fishes from on the ocean would get up and put their voices together, I'll hear them say, Kalinago Woman Strong. So I wrote that song, and we are proud of our ladies on the island. One thing we didn't miss out, because I don't want to prolong it too much, but the spirituality of women and the whole that they can hold a family unit together. Mr. Dawson talk about the extended family, but having a lady as a rem of family keeps you there. I have my mother, she's just lying there at 96 years old. But she holds that a magnet that holds us, the family together. And when somebody, an elderly lady in a house dies, sometimes this family shattered across. Somebody's had to grab property and they're getting with. That woman is strong, they have power. When the man will get angry, want to fight, the woman will have to go to their knees and pray and get spiritual healing to the family. And we cannot overemphasize the contribution, the role they have played. The challenge we have now is how we continue to manifest this role we have in the younger generation, so in 20 years to come, we can still say that the tradition is handed down and we have this value and dignity as Kalinago women and Kalinago people. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and enjoy the safe journey back to your home. It was a very successful day for us and a hard day for some. Thank you very much to our DJ here. That's young man there, have been with us this morning. Thank you very much to the media house that they're there for us, and to all our listeners. We will be continuing the struggle and continuing to promote Kalinago tradition in Dominica and the Caribbean. Thank you very much.
That's it, folks, from here in the Kalinago territory, from Sarabia, St. Cyr, Thanks again for listening. Thanks for watching. And to all of you who watched on Facebook, big up to you. Big up to you. You made great company tonight. And thanks for the positive comments that you all made. I've never seen people embrace the Kalinago territory so well before. And I need to tell all our Facebook viewers and the participants, we highly appreciate what you've done tonight. So thanks once again. And to those of you who said well done job and you had your comments, especially in the area of the herbs, I think that was where our folks in the audience, our Facebook folks were very strong. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for listening. Join us tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, but from PT Miami, formerly known as Anchorage Hotel, when we'll bring you the media launch of WCMF 2022. On behalf of my cameraman, Yipman Bruno, and technician himself, as well as me, giving him a little support now and then, I'm Steve Vidal saying thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your night. Take care. Good night. Stay tuned for the next level coming up with Simeon Albert.